it is afternoon. Everybody, good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to this. And thank you so much, guys, for inviting me to be here and speak. And I never knew that we had so many PhD students at the university. This is my first time on this stage. I've had like 3 degrees from this university and never been up here to get any of them. So it's quite a view from here. So I work at the University of Manchester as a research associate in biomedical magnetic resonance imaging. So some of the images there on the right side in that column are from some of the research studies I've done. But Jaysha very specifically told me not to talk about the science I do. So I'm not going to, otherwise I'll get into trouble. Okay, so. So I went to sorry, one second. Yeah, my primary school years were spent at a special school in a very leafy part of Manchester. The children there had a variety of disabilities, some with complex and severe impairments. I learned some of my life's most important lessons there about making the best of being disabled. We had lots of fun doing things like wheelchair dancing. There's a picture of me, spot which one I am, and my friends at a competition there. And we took part in very fierce sports competitions against other special schools, locally and nationally, winning plenty of trophies and medals, but the academic stimulation I needed just wasn't there. So I was really lucky that I was in the right place at the right time to be chosen as one of the first disabled pupils to attend the only accessible mainstream high school in Manchester at that time. This was my introduction to the real world. I absorbed everything high school had to offer. My favorite subject of all was science. And I don't know if you recognize these TV programs. You guys are so young. But on the left side there is Tomorrow's World, and on the right is a program called Star Trek. These TV programs really fueled my passion for science. They were portals into the possibilities of the future, some of which have already come to pass. The way that Dr. McCoy from Star Trek would wave a probe over an ill person and be able to diagnose their illness and then cure them straight away without a hitch. That made me think, yes, I want to become a doctor. Sadly, when the time came to seek careers advice, I was told that there was no way I could pursue medicine with my disabilities. My mum said, never mind, you can become a lawyer instead. But I had my heart set on science, so I achieved the best GCSE grades my year and went on to study maths, physics, and biology at A-level. During a physics class, I spotted a book on the teacher's shelf that was entitled Medical Physics. This was like being struck by a divine bolt of lightning. I could actually enter the medical field as a physicist through science. So I went to UoMSt, which is now what you call Sackville Street Building, down the road. And while reading physics at university, I was elected to the Students' Union as the Disability Access Secretary. And then they ended up doing this, a bungee jump in my wheelchair from a crane on the side of Oxford Road, just over there where the aquatic centre is, in protest at the lack of access in some of the university's buildings. So yeah, that's me upside down there on the bungee cord. This stopped like loads of traffic on Oxford Road. What is this crazy dude doing? And I got my picture into the Times Higher Education, which was amazing. So this was the start of my disability activism. I wanted to do an MSc in medical physics and move into, so I wanted to go to the Stopford building on Oxford Road, which is where the MSc was run. But I didn't have any way to pay the fees to do my MSc at that time. So a noble charity called the Snowdon Trust, who support students with physical disabilities, came to my rescue at that point, and again, when this led on to a PhD. So I put a green tick on Stopford Building, not because it's the most beautiful building in the world, or the best place I wanted, but because it was the medical school. And as my passions were to do medicine, it was like a dream come true to be able to even just enter that building. So I started my PhD at the turn of the century in developing novel analysis techniques of advanced magnetic resonance imaging in cancer. And the two people pictured on the right side there were my supervisors, Professor Jackson, who was a neuroradiologist, and Professor Williams, who was a chemist. And both of them pulled me through the very thicks and thins of doing a PhD and got me right to the end. So while working on various projects, I collaborated with some of the best scientists and clinicians in Manchester, and even trained a qualified medical doctor in how to run analysis software and understand the physics behind it. That's when I appreciated that the field I had entered was so much more exciting and rewarding than the doctor I originally wanted to be. I presented my research work at major international scientific conferences in some of the most exotic locations, including on the left there, Cannes in France, and on the right in Honolulu. What gorgeous places they really are. They're like paradise on earth. But of course, all for the sake of science, going to these places. And the way that my academic abilities were the only thing that mattered, regardless of my physical impairments, convinced me to stay in academia. So finally, I submitted my thesis and voila, became a doctor. Not that kind of doctor, but still a doctor. So I was very fortunate to get my first research associate job shortly after finishing my PhD in the same department 14 years ago. And I've been working on successive fixed-term research projects since then. So my line managers, my department, over the years have been just incredible in the way that they've supported me and enabled me to stay in Manchester. Many people move from place to place in order to progress their academic career, but that wasn't practical for me. I couldn't move anywhere. Manchester has always been my home. So, do I enjoy my job? It's not going to let me answer the question. Oh, yes, okay. Yeah, absolutely. So collaborating with all sorts of clever and inspirational people across the globe, literally, teaching and engaging with bright young people like yourselves is the best parts of the job. Being creative, facing new challenges every day, kind of waking up in the middle of the night thinking, oh my God, if I had only put that line of code in my program, it would have worked fine. And I wouldn't have disappointed my supervisor. And then presenting at international scientific conferences. However, let me dwell a second on this scheme. So, as a disabled person, support is crucial. The integrated support I have is so important to me and lets me fulfill my potential with independence and confidence. But I need the support to do that. And without it, I couldn't have studied or couldn't do my job right now. So as a student, I had the Disabled Students Allowance, which you may have heard of, but that's been restricted as well now. And obviously the Snowdon Trust was there to support me as a student too. But becoming a member of staff meant that I lost all of that support as a student. Thankfully, someone in HR who I spoke to knew about this government scheme called Access to Work, which supports disabled people in paid work. This scheme is still very poorly promoted. It's almost like the government doesn't want disabled people to know about it. That's strange, isn't it? Access to Work allowed me to employ my personal assistant, who is Damien. I don't know if he's here, actually. I've lost him already. And he helps me with everyday tasks that I couldn't manage at work myself, and to help me to go to conferences, which is a vital part of being a researcher, even if you don't get to go to the most exotic places. Without this support, I would literally have to stay at home. So I am now the founding director of a new spin-out company from the university. We call ourselves Quantimer, and this aims to put our science into practice and have a positive impact on the lives of tens of millions of people around the world who are predicted to suffer with dementia in the decades to come. The technology we have is all based on MRI imaging and being able to detect dementia much earlier on, so we might be able to prevent it if the treatments are there. The company is supported by the university and an outside investor called IP Group. So this is extremely exciting stuff. So did my disability activism stop at the bungee jump? Nope. So I helped start up and lead the university's Disabled Staff Network. And one of the first things I did was to meet Professor Alan Gilbert. I don't know if you remember him. He was the president and vice chancellor of the university before Nancy took over. Alan Gilbert sadly passed away, but he's better known nowadays as Ali G and the Learning Commons over there. So I had to have a meeting with him and do a SWOT analysis about the experiences of disabled staff at the university, which was really nerve-wracking, but he was so kind and listened to everything I had to say. A SWOT analysis around strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges. And he was very receptive to that. So by doing that, and by talking to him about what we lacked in terms of support, we as a network were instrumental in making our university one of the first to provide dedicated support for disabled staff, alongside the support that was already there for disabled students. This was key, really important for us. In June 2014, we held the first national conference for and about disabled staff in higher education. And people came from across the country. We called the event, "What Are We Hiding?" Because it was all about hidden disabilities like mental health, autism, people with HIV, etc., and the hidden contribution we make as disabled people to the economy. So this slide here shows our university's president and vice chancellor, Nancy, presenting the inaugural Making a Difference award to my friend Melanie and I for organizing that groundbreaking event. And on the back of that event, I used the event to launch the National Association of Disabled Staff Networks, which I chair right now. This is a super network, really super, to connect and represent disabled staff networks in the tertiary education sector across the UK and beyond. It's open to any individual or organisation interested in promoting the equality of disabled staff. We have the BBC and ITV and other organisations as part of this too. So our mission is to act as a collective platform to share experiences and good practice, and to examine the challenges we all share as well as the opportunities. So I have the honor through this organization of working with some of the most impressive disabled leaders in the sector who have taught me so much about resilience and innovation. Right now we have a focus on disabled academics. So as Jaysha very kindly mentioned, I was at the Wellcome Trust yesterday talking about the experiences of disabled academics. And this slide is from one of our colleagues in the association who put together what those myths and those kind of, like preconceptions, the stereotypes of what an ideal academic should be. So somebody who works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, who is mobile, who basically doesn't have a body, they don't have a life beyond their work, all of these kind of things that are listed on here. And of course, these are stereotypes. There's no need to be of any of these qualities to be a successful academic. It's all about your passion and your drive to go out there, to study, to discover, and to learn more, to debate as well, really importantly. So, earlier last year, in 2018, I was invited to give the annual disability lecture, and that was at the University of Cambridge, and that was with two other disabled academics, and it was all on disabled academics in the 21st century. And it was a fantastic event and really well received. On the right side, though, what I loved the most in the promotion for the event was being pictured alongside Professor Stephen Hawkins. I just love that, so yeah, I'm going to show that everywhere I go. Unfortunately, he died just a week before I got to Cambridge. Otherwise, I would have loved to have met him, but maybe in the next life. So, I wanted to mention how important my family has been to me. So, as a disabled child in a traditional Pakistani family, my extended family and community never expected me to amount to much. So, a destiny, though, that my parents refused to accept for me, and they always pushed me, sometimes literally, to work hard and achieve the best with my abilities. So that's obviously my mum and dad there, me sitting on my dad, and my brother looking very annoyed with the photographer. I had two sisters after that, so this is the golden age. So lastly, these are the cutest pictures of my family. My wife, Humaira, is my rock, and she keeps me headed in the right direction. And we have two gorgeous kids, my son Hamza and daughter Haya. They're now 11 and 10. And they are both disabled as well with their own impairments, but their mum has made them promise to at least achieve a PhD like their dad. And then they can do whatever they want. So Hamza has decided he wants to do his PhD, and then he wants to be a bus driver. Yeah, because he loves traveling, and he might, after that, go for a Nobel Prize. And Aya, my daughter, has said that she just wants to win the X Factor after she's done her PhD. Whatever they aspire to do, I really hope and pray that they will achieve their dreams. And that's it. That's me done. Thank you.